All right. So as you know, Dr. Kinvara is director of the world's largest lesson project, and she oversees different programs, but as well as the own campaign of the Happiness Project, which is directly in line with our topics today. So without taking too much time away, go ahead, Dr. Kinvara.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Kinvara, and I'm speaking to you today from a very rainy and cold UK, where I feel like I'm in my winter clothes. Um, Unfortunately, Tim, I'm not quite a doctor, but I love that you keep addressing me as one. So I think I'll keep that. I'd love to be a doctor. So today everyone, we've got about 15 minutes, and if we just move on to the next slide, please. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about impact and the power of impact and measurement when you come to your social action projects. But also before we get to that, we're going to be looking a little bit about the power of your imagination and why you as young people have a unique role to play in taking social action and social change, and it's about your creativity. So if we move on to the next slide, please. I came across this quote from a guy called Eddie Dobu, who's an SDG advocate, and he describes activism as another. He says that another way that he views the word activism is from imagination, because it's about the idea of being able to envisage a world that doesn't yet exist. And I think that's what the job of an activist is to be able to create into being or create into existence a new world order that is really equitable, fair, and sustainable. And I love this quote. And I just wanted for you guys to have this in your mind as we go through it, because he's really talking about how imagination, how viewing or in imagining a world that you think could be different, just, fair, and sustainable is the key to being what an activist is, or is a key to how you can take social action. So if we go on to the next slide, can just by sharing either a yes or a no in the chat or just some kind of emoji, has anybody used Midjourney before, the AI platform Midjourney? No worries if you haven't, but okay, so I encourage you to use it, to explore it, just because it can, a platform or a piece of technology like Midjourney can really help you imagine the future that you want to change with your social impact projects. So I was in New York in July, and it was absolutely boiling. It was so hot and humid. And I thought about this, and I wondered, how could we envisage how we live in cities differently, and how could we use technology to help us? And so these AI generated images used on Midjourney from this amazing artist called Katie Patrick. She created these images thinking about how we could reformat or we could change our cities and how we live in them differently, thinking about giving more space to nature. And you can also look and see how there's solar panels and everything, and a new way of how she envisaged how we could live and work in New York City. So I just wanted to show the case this to you, because it's an example of someone using their imagination and creativity for showcasing how we could live slightly differently. So on the next slide, please, I am going to give you a task. You can either write this in the chat, or you can use pen and paper if you have one right on your hand, or you could write the answers down in the notes section in your phone. But I'm going to give you 30 seconds to write down as many reasons or uses you can think of for a brick. So you have 30 seconds to write down as quickly as possible as many ways or as many uses you think you can use a brick for. I'll keep a look at the timer on my phone. Okay, that's 30 seconds up. You might be wondering why I have asked you to write as many ideas down as you can for how you think you could use a brick. I love this things coming through. Yes, Hayden, I think you definitely use it as a plate, building houses, chalk, melting, using it for breaking stuff, melting it down for art pieces. Love that. You might be wondering why I asked you this. And this is because if we go on to the next slide, please, you as young people have an incredible power that we as adults don't have. And that as is you are actually more creative. You have more creative skills than we have as adults. This is off a study that was done by NASA in 2018, which found that at the age of 4 to 5 is the most creative you are as a young person. Then by the time you get down to an adult, being the average age, the study was done with age 31-year-olds, their creativity level went down by 2%. Went down by 2%, sorry, was only at 2%. And this is because you guys as young people have an incredible power, and that is your creativity. And so I want you to hold that in your minds, hold that in your heads and hearts as you continue going through this journey on your summer school program, because you have a unique power that can be used to take action for your social impact projects that we don't have as adults. So moving forwards, please. I'd like to have this just in your heads, thinking about why might it be important to measure the impact of your action projects. There are many, many different reasons, but I'm going to talk through two in more detail now. Next slide, please. So we've talked a little bit about how imagination and creativity are needed and are your powers as young people, and how you can help take and develop social action projects. Now I'm going to look in a little bit more detail at examples of projects and talk a little bit about the impact and how people used data from those projects to talk about the impact and to share their stories. Because when you collect data about a social impact project, you can use it to not only change people's minds and behaviors, you can also use it for advocacy, but you can also use it to help you understand on what you could do better. So I'm going to talk you through two examples now. And so hopefully you will be inspired by these examples to think about how you could measure data to tell the impact of your social impacts of your social action projects that you are embarking on in this program. Next slide, please, Tim. So this is actually an art installation that we at Project Everyone did in London. It was called Forest for Change. I can share some more information about it if you're interested, but really, this is a historic building in London which does not allow trees to be planted in the courtyard because it says that it disrupts the proportion of the proportion of the buildings. And we thought, okay, no, we want to challenge that. So we created this art installation where we brought over 150 different trees into this courtyard in London. And we created an art installation in the circle of it, where we invited people to read and learn more about the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and then leave a voice message that recorded how they felt about that goal. If you go on to the next slide, please, you'll be able to see an illustration. This is what you were met with in the center of the art installation. And people were encouraged to walk around, read the pillars, read the information about the SDGs, and then also leave a voice message in each of the pillars. So we thought about, not only do we want to make this a beautiful art installation and get people talking about the goals, getting the people to understand what they are, but we also wanted to create some more long-lasting impact to this art installation. So if you go on to the next slide, we input air sensors all around the building, in the courtyard, and also in the forest itself. The installation and the trees were up for 1 month. They were up for the month of June 2021. And we looked at the air quality that was recorded. As you can see here, the Strand is the word for the street that it was on, the courtyard and the forest. And then we saw a 14 to 15% decrease in the amount of nitrogen dioxide that was in the atmosphere. And that was because the trees were helping to clean the air, making it better air quality, which is a bad air quality is a problem that we have in London. So we use this data that we collected to help us tell the story of this art installation to say not only is it something beautiful that people learn about the goals, but that actually when you bring nature into a city space, you can actually increase the air quality for all the people in this and the citizens that live there. Thank you, Tim. Next slide. The next social impact project I'm going to tell you about is from this amazing guy called Sam Benchigib. He's the founder of something called the Sungai Watch. I'll share some links to some of the work that he's done because he's really used data and the power of data for what he's collected to really showcase the story of his social action project. So if we go on to the next slide, please. So Sam lives on the island of Bali, which has a trash problem in that lots of trash and plastic is found and located in its rivers all around Bali. So he set up an organization where he has placed trash river barriers in those rivers to collect the trash. But not only is he collecting the trash, if we move on to the next slide, please. He is also working with volunteers, members of the local community and other young people to collect all the trash, bag it, and then collect some data on it. So here you can see some photos of different volunteers and young people collecting the trash around Bali. If we move on to the next slide. So he has created an impact report for his project, which is incredibly thorough and has lots of detail in it. I'll share a link to it in the chat after this. And what he's done is he's noted down what kind of plastics he's finding in his trash barriers and also categorized them by waste. And he's doing this because it's giving them a level of understanding about what the actual problem is around trash in Bali and where it's coming from. But also, and this is what I really like about it, if you move on to the next slide, he has been able to track which company is responsible for every single piece of trash that he has collected. So he's been able to advocate to these organizations, to these multilateral huge organizations and say, I've been collecting trash in all of these different locations around Bali. I've categorized and I've used the data and categorized them for all the trash to understand who is the most guilty corporate who's participated in this. And then he's been able to rank them and showcase this. Now, this obviously provides compelling data and compelling impact because it's encouraging companies to try to change and to try to install better practices, because obviously you don't want to be number one on this list. So if we go to the next slide, please. In summary, what I've tried to share with you today is a few points. One is that creativity and imagination are powers that are unique to you. And now with the explosion of technology and AI, there are so many ways in which you can use technology to help you visualize or to help you further explore your creativity. So that's what we looked at that example with Midjourney early on. But also the challenge for you and the challenges for you guys is being highly engaged young people who are working on this summer program, thinking about how you can use the power of the SDGs, your knowledge of climate change, thinking about how you can also use that knowledge, your creativity and your imagination, as well as data to showcase the impact of your social change projects. And so hopefully what I've been able to do today is give you a bit of an example of how you can do those things, and also a bit of a showcase of what other young people around the world are doing and how they're using their creativity for change and how they're advocating on what needs to happen. So thank you very much. And I'll drop a few links in the chat now if there are more things if you'd like to find out some more information.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kinvara. Thank you. Sorry about the title mishap.
No, love that. Love that.
Awesome. All right. You mentioned that you had to hop off, unfortunately. So thank you again for everything. And we'll hope to see you again. And any questions anyone has, please put them in the chat. Be sure to pass them along, and any links as well. All right. So I'm going to quickly stop sharing my screen here.